call the Moore County Board of Education work session and regular meeting to order. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Dennison, seconded by Betty Wells-Brown. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I do want to make a comment before we get started that Dr. Grimacy is unexpectedly detained due to a family matter, and he will be here as soon as he can, if he can make it today. So we have Mr. Locklear sitting in the place of honor today, and he will be helping us with today's board meeting. So thank you for joining us today. We'll try not to call you Dr. Locklear throughout the day, but
That would be okay. I've been called much worse. Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Locklear, reports, information, and discussion. Our first item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we have John Baraff, who's here today to lead us off with some exciting information to share about our upcoming work and renovation at Northmore High School, and he's here with the Morrisburg architects to share that information. So I'm going to turn it right over to John and let him tee that off for us. John?
Thank you, Mr. Locklear. Chair, board members, good afternoon. It's an exciting day. I love this part of the job because I get to associate with more architects. You'll remember that back in June, y'all approved Morrisburg as a selected architect to take on the challenge of designing the additions and renovations to Northmore High School. Since then, they've been diligently at work. They have had meetings with the user groups as well as with our staff here in planning and working through the program and the best solutions to it. What you will see them present does not look like the footprint that was presented in your master facilities plan that we went through 3 years ago. They have come up with a very creative solution out there that is going to be of great benefit to the board, and I'll let them dive into that when they explain it to you. So with me today, we have Todd Berg from Morrisburg sitting to my immediate left. He is going to handle the presentation. He brought with him Steve and Lauren, who are heavily involved in this project and intimately knowledgeable about this project and all the challenges it has. And they're all here to help answer questions. As with our protocols in the past, once they're done with their presentation, we will ask the board to split up into two groups, and we will have you go to the two boards to talk about site and about building solutions to provide us and the team with the feedback that we need from you. So with that further ado, Todd, I turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, John. Again, my name is Todd Berg with Morrisburg Architects. Is that echoing or is it just me? Sorry about that. So thank you very much for the opportunity to come here tonight. This is a tremendously exciting project for us. It's a very challenging project, and we love a challenge. But we've really enjoyed working on it so far. This is pretty much the culmination of schematic design, which, as I'm sure you're aware, is sort of the first phase of the project. It's trying to get the geography right and get the concept right before we move into more detailed drawing. So before we get to your project, I thought it would be helpful for you to learn a little bit about us. I don't think many of you were in our interview, so we'll call this portion of the presentation, Who is Morrisburg Architects? I think our firm can best be summed up by this quote from one of our county commissioner clients. She was actually a school board client before she became a county commissioner client, and we've done a number of projects with her. But this quote, I think, sums us up well. We're a small firm, very highly collaborative, and we believe very much in open and honest communication throughout the process. And we've been doing it that way for more than 44 years. We've been in business since 1974. And for pretty much the whole time of our history, we've specialized in the design of educational facilities. Everything from public schools to community colleges and universities. In fact, we've done about 80 educational facility projects, and probably 60 of those have been this very complex addition renovation type. We have, as I said, we're a small firm. We have 13 employees. 5 of those are registered architects. We have 3 LEED accredited professionals and 2 interior designers on staff. We're small, but our staff is very stable and very experienced. The average tenure of an employee with our firm is 15 years, and the average level of experience of one of our project architects and project managers is about 25 years. Because we focus so much in public school projects, everybody in the firm has extensive experience with K-12 projects, particularly, again, these renovation type projects. And a few years back, we were selected by the Charlotte section of the American Institute of Architects as the firm of the year in recognition of our contributions to design and the community service and service to the profession. That probably means more to John and Roger than it does to you, but it's something that we're pretty proud of. So I mentioned a little bit about our project experience. I just kind of want to run through again just to highlight what we've done. As I said, a number of public school projects, 53 I think to date, and the bulk of those have really been these addition renovation type projects, probably about 40 of those. And half of that number have been with very similar components to what your project has, science labs and PE and athletic type facilities. So the challenges that we see in your project are very familiar to us. We've seen them on a number of other projects. One of those challenges is construction phasing. How do you build this project in a rational fashion that allows minimal disruption to campus? We're not going to say there's going to be no disruption to campus, but we try to minimize that. I think building on an occupied campus is a challenge in and of itself. You have to do that very safely and very carefully so that it's safe for all the students and staff, obviously, but having an operating school coexist with a construction site presents some unique challenges, and we've seen those in the past, and we've solved those in the past. I think trying to unify the entire campus under one roof, or at least move a step in that direction, is something that we've handled a lot in the past. A lot of these schools that were built in the 50s, 60s, 70s are these open campus type projects, and trying to get them under one roof is something that we've done a number of times before. This project has some additional challenges in the topography, as we'll show you when we get into the actual project drawings, but there's some significant grade differences from one building to the other, and that presents some code and accessibility challenges as well. So all of those things are things that we've handled in the past. I'll comment on our photo selection here. We could show you some very nice magazine quality photos, but we've yet to be hired by a school board who says we want you to design an award-winning project. It's all about solving problems, solving challenges that are unique to the campus, and so this type of project requires you to roll your sleeves up and get your hands dirty, and that's what we've already started to do. So that's a little bit about us. We'll talk now about the specific project. Beginning with, as John referenced, there was a master plan that was done before we were hired by another firm, which really sort of planted the seeds for how this project was to develop. And this is an excerpt from that master plan that shows one idea of how this addition could be placed. You can see in the colored part of the floor plan there, it's kind of an L-shaped addition that goes out and connects the existing gymnasium to really what is the most recent classroom building on that campus. The program requirements, which are listed there down the left-hand side of the screen, you may not be able to read all of those, but many of those came to us when we were hired. There were some modifications to the program, the most of which was probably the addition of a wrestling room. That was not in the original program. That was something that was added, really begun discussing during the interview process. But you can see there a majority of those are some athletic and PE type facilities. There are also some science labs and science classrooms, some general purpose classrooms as well, and a couple of specialty labs and classrooms, and a drafting lab and an exceptional children classroom. So that was sort of the roadmap that we were given as a starting point. There was a budget that came along with that. This budget was developed by your facilities staff, John and Roger. It began in 2015. It was updated as recently as December of 2017. And as you can see there, we had a total construction budget of just under $12 million. That included a 4% annual escalation cost. I'll make a brief comment on that. We've actually seen construction cost increase at a rate of about 4.5% just in the first 6 months of this year. So while I think that was a pretty good estimate when it was made, we're seeing that outpaced by actual conditions. A lot of that is attributable to just everybody's busy. There's a lot of construction going on. The labor pool is maxed out, so labor costs have gone up. We're also beginning to see the effects of discussions about tariffs. That's driving costs up as well. But nevertheless, the construction budget there allowed for an addition at the time of about 41,000 square feet. So that was the preliminary budget that, again, was part of our charge and part of our roadmap. So that was the beginning point. One of the first things that we did immediately when learning about this project was to start looking at kind of a campus analysis. And what you see here is a diagram that shows the orange block was the footprint of that master plan that was developed before we were hired. The little yellow block, that's a renovation of the existing locker rooms. And then the dashed line is the property line. But what we determined pretty much immediately once we launched into this campus analysis is the grade change that I mentioned earlier. The upper right-hand corner of that addition, the floor level of that is about 15 feet above the finished grade as it exists currently. And then there's about 6 feet of grade change in that classroom wing portion. There's actually about 10 feet of grade change from the lowest floor level down at the existing gymnasium up to the main office building, if you're familiar with the campus. So that grade presented some significant challenges. There are a couple of, actually 3 modular classrooms that are right in the middle of where that addition is going to go. So that had been identified in the master plan that those were going to have to be relocated, and we certainly concur with that. The other thing that we noticed in the site analysis, this sort of hatched box there represents a pretty deep hole, and part of that 15 feet is attributable to the hole, but there really is kind of a drainage basin in that area. And that was one of the things that we felt like with the master plan, putting the bulk of that addition in that hole meant some significant site costs before you even build the first classroom. So we were going to have to import a lot of dirt and bring that up. So that was one of the things that we wanted to look at. And then the blue arrow there signifies that, again, like many campuses of this vintage, it's a very porous campus. Individual buildings that are connected by covered walkways certainly worked well in its time, but given the current security conditions and things like that, and for convenience purposes as well, trying to unify all of those buildings under one roof became a desirable goal. From there, that analysis, I'll jump into the actual design that we've proposed, and I'm gonna change up the order a little bit here and skip right to the site plan. This will help illustrate a little bit some of the things that I was talking about. So because of the grade and because of that sort of large drainage basin, it became apparent to us early on that the more linear we could make the building, the more compact we could make the building, the less site costs we would have to devote to just getting kind of up to ground level, grade 0, if you want to call it that way. The other thing that allowed for was, instead of just connecting the gym to the newest classroom building, we were actually able to connect 4 existing buildings: the gym, plus the main office there in the front, or the bottom part of the site plan, and then the classroom building behind that. So now, instead of just beginning to connect the campus under one roof, we have a good chunk of it that is now connected under one roof. We're showing in the upper right corner there a detention basin for stormwater detention. We're still uncertain as to whether that's going to be required or not. We just came to this meeting from a meeting with zoning and planning and building inspector and fire marshal about this specific project. So there's still some questions to be resolved, but we're showing that for now as a placeholder. So you can see we deviated from the master plan a little bit. Instead of having that L-shaped plan, we now have sort of a linear plan that comes through campus and connects those buildings and stays out of that basin area. We still have some grade challenges, but not as much as we would have. So, sorry, I meant to go backwards. So from there, I'll talk a little bit about the floor plan. I don't know how well you all are able to read that from your seat on the screen there. We have it on the boards here, and we'll certainly be able to look at it and answer some questions. But I'll just kind of walk you through it, maybe using the pointer on the board just to give you some general areas. But immediately adjacent to the existing gymnasium, that block of spaces is where the existing locker rooms are. They're in less than ideal condition, as you probably are aware, and probably have some functional obsolescence at this point. So the decision was made really probably before we got involved to just completely gut that space, demo everything and rebuild it back per the current program requirements. So we've had a number of meetings with the staff there at the school, along with Roger and John, to try to determine what those requirements are. But essentially, it's 2 pairs of locker rooms for separate locker room for PE and athletics for both male and female. Along with that, there are some requirements for some coaches' offices that are located there with the locker rooms. There's a training room that's being provided as part of this renovation, as well as a laundry that's close by, some storage rooms. And then the other thing that we were able to do was to fit the health classroom in this renovated area, which seems to make sense based on the function and having everything sort of there together. So that then is the renovated area. So you can see there's kind of a long hallway or a spine that goes right through the middle of this that begins to connect those buildings, as I mentioned. There's 10 feet of elevation from this building to this building, and then these two didn't cooperate. They're not on any floor level that the other buildings are on. So essentially what we've provided is this hallway that can be sort of a ramp up to take care of all the accessibility issues in all the buildings. It'll meet all the accessibility requirements, and you'll ramp up from one building to the next and then be able to enter each of those buildings on grade level. So everything is sort of organized around that ramp/corridor, which also conveniently and we think in a very positive way accesses those courtyards that are already part of that campus. You know, there's some nice courtyard spaces here, and so that hallway will have direct access onto that courtyard and really begin to make sense of the internal circulation of not just the addition, but the entire campus. So sort of jumping across that hallway, beginning in the upper right-hand corner there, one of the things that we looked at doing was rotating the auxiliary gym from the way they had it in the master plan. They had it sort of long access horizontal, which began putting it more into that low spot. So we turned it long axis vertical. So the auxiliary gym is located here. It's currently a full-size basketball court with about 300 bleacher seats. So it can handle basketball, volleyball. That will allow the option of having 2 games, maybe varsity and JV, or boys and girls, or whatever the administration desires, but it allows a great deal of flexibility there. Just above that auxiliary gym is the weight and wellness, so that's the weight room that was part of the original program. And then here is a new entrance lobby with toilets and a little concessions area in the renovated area. So that allows now kind of a new entrance into this athletics PE complex, if you want to call it that, with access into the auxiliary gym and convenient toilets for after-hours use. So moving down from that auxiliary gym, the other large blue space there is the wrestling room. That was not part of the original program back when the original budgeting was done, but was something that was brought up during the interview and then during our subsequent discussions with the school staff. They felt like having a dedicated wrestling room was something that was highly desired. It again allows flexibility of all these athletics and PE spaces, so it's something that was added to the program that we were able to accommodate. Then the little wing that juts out horizontally there is predominantly a science wing now. As you know, the science labs that are in the high school now are old and outdated and certainly need to be modernized and updated. So we've provided a science wing that has 2 very large, spacious labs, as well as 4 classrooms. So again, in talking with the staff, they felt like the model that works for them best is to have students in a classroom when they're being taught lecture type material, and then they can move to the lab for lab type material. Often both of those will take place in the same lab. It's not the most efficient way of doing it. We've certainly done it that way, but the staff felt like this was better for them. So we have the 2 labs with the prep room in between them, and then the 4 classrooms as well. In the little corner there, that's just a mechanical room. That's unfortunately something that we have to do to keep everybody heated and cooled. But moving down from that, we have a number of classrooms, math classrooms. They're really just general purpose classrooms. There are 4 of those that are organized along the spine there, and then that connects into the existing building. From there, we have another set of toilets, and then the bottommost new classroom there is actually an exceptional children classroom. That is something that has sort of moved around a little bit through the schematic design process, in part, again, due to some in-depth discussion with the staff. But the staff and we as well feel like this is the best location now for exceptional children. It puts it close to the front parking lot there, close to the main office. And out of this, what may tend to be very noisy, at times very active and noisy type space. So that's the location that we settled on. So that, I think, is a pretty good overview of the floor plan. Talked about the site plan. This is just a very diagrammatic, sort of cartoon version of what that begins to look like in a schematic design way. You can see the 4 existing buildings that we're connecting to, and then the ability to have that ramp corridor system with the openings onto the courtyard. You can see the pop-up space in the new area there is the auxiliary gym. It requires a higher volume than the lab and the classroom spaces. So this was done as much for internal purposes so we can study that massing and how it all connects. But we thought we'd show that to you as well so you can begin to see an idea of how it all comes together. So from there, I'll talk a little bit about our budget summary. At the end of schematic design, we hired a cost estimator to do a detailed cost estimate. I will say, and we said this in the interview, I'm a firm believer that architects are terrible cost estimators. So we don't do it ourselves. We hire experts that's all they do. In this case, it's a company called Palacio. They did sort of 2 separate cost estimates, and what we show here is really just a summary, but you can see it's very detailed. It's probably, 12, 15 pages on the renovation, and then maybe 18 or 20 pages on the new construction. So it's very detailed. It is based on the limited information that you saw there, the schematic design type drawings. But based on their estimate, we're showing a total estimated cost of about $12.8 million. Again, that compares to your budget of $11.9 million. A couple of things that we attribute that to: one, the increase in program by adding the wrestling room. That's approximately 2,500 square feet at $250, $300 a square foot. So there's $600,000 or $700,000 in additional cost attributed to the wrestling room. The other thing is just the cost of construction, I think, has outpaced the original escalation estimates. As I said, the estimate back when the original estimate was done, they anticipated 4%. It's actually much higher than that. Again, this is a schematic design estimate. We'll certainly do another one at DD, which will be even more detailed. There are a couple of things that we're still exploring, investigating. As I said, we met earlier with building inspectors and fire marshals. There's some concern over the water line that currently serves that school and how that water line might be used for firefighting, whether it's a sprinkler system, which is what we currently have planned, or fire hydrants, or a combination of the two. So we have some more investigation to do on that water line in conjunction with the fire marshal. We know what we need to do, and that's something that we'll be trying to address immediately. But that may have some additional cost implications we don't know yet. As I mentioned, the detention pond is another unknown. We currently have it shown, but we will have to determine for sure whether or not that's required. If it's not required, that's good news. That's some savings that we can allocate to the important parts of the projects, the classrooms and the labs. So I think that's pretty much what we have to show you. Be happy to answer any questions or go back and cover something in more detail.
All right, I have one. How will this affect our OCR requirements? I mean, those have all been accounted for.
This will be a benefit. One of the greatest challenges we have in the complaint that was identified was accessible toilet rooms. And currently they use one of the office toilets in the gymnasium for that. By the location of where they have placed the toilet rooms in this scenario, which is up here in this corner, it'll provide through a covered extension of this covered canopy into the entry, the access that they need. So this will help satisfy that.
The elevation changes won't cause any problem.
No, they won't.
Good, thanks.
Is the corridor connecting all the buildings, is that enclosed or is that a canopy?
That is enclosed.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an enclosed, heated and cooled corridor.
And when you speak of the 12.8 million you're thinking on now, that is a turnkey price, including furnishings,
No,
no
that's
furnishings,
construction only.
construction only.
Our total budget for the project was approximately, I think, 15.4 million, if memory serves me. And so of that, 11.9 was for the construction part, and then we had other costs for furnishings, equipment, et cetera.
Right. The connector that comes in at the very bottom, that connects, I think that's the office building, isn't it, on the bottom? Where does that come into the office? Or maybe we'll be able to tell when we get up closer.
Yeah, you can. There's a conference room. That's the conference room, right, Lauren? Yeah, there's a conference room right there, a very, very large conference room, and there's an exterior door just outside of that conference room. It will connect in there. And we've had some discussion with staff about that. That is not anticipated to be something that the students use a lot. It's more for staff. Students will more connect to this classroom building and this classroom building. They will have the ability to connect into the office, but it's not anticipated they're going to be coming and going through that door a lot.
Is the original structure or structures sprinkled for fire?
No, nothing is currently sprinkled. So I can get into a little more detail on that. What is triggering the sprinkler requirement is really the auxiliary gym. The building code allows you 12,000 feet or 12,000 square feet or 300 occupants, and that triggers the requirement for sprinkler. We will have more than 300 occupants, even though there are 300 bleacher seats. That was one of the questions we had of the fire marshal today. Even though there are 300 bleacher seats, they're going to look at it as if, well, what happens if you have a school dance in there or a science fair or something, and you have a lot of people on that floor. So for safety purposes, they're going to require sprinkling of that auxiliary gym at least. We had originally thought, well, if we're going to sprinkle that, we might as well sprinkle the entire addition. We still will not go back and sprinkle the existing buildings, but based on this water line information, that may not be feasible in terms of cost. So we may be back to just sprinkling the auxiliary gym. We'll have to construct a firewall across here. There's already going to be firewalls where these buildings touch the existing buildings, and then that will isolate actually the auxiliary gym as well as the weight room into one building area as the building code looks at it.
Excuse me. Go ahead.
Where would parking be around there for people to use the auxiliary gym?
So the bulk of the parking,
Wanna point this one?
yeah, good idea. So the bulk of the student parking is back here. The auxiliary gym is right there.
Right.
So there's this loop road. We probably are going to have to modify that loop road slightly because of our little bump out here, but we're not getting into any of the parking areas. So the parking will
How do they
stay.
get into the auxiliary gym?
They will come up as if they're coming to the main gym, just like they are now. And then, as John said, we will have probably a covered canopy here. It could be an enclosed part of the lobby. Again, it's going to be budget dependent, but most likely a covered canopy that will get them from this point into that little lobby that serves the auxiliary gym.
Thank you.
So that will kind of become the arrival point for the main gym, the auditorium, and the auxiliary gym. There's more parking here as well that will provide access to this end of the building, particularly that exceptional children classroom.
With the connectors to the already existing classroom buildings and the office building, we are very cognizant of the fact that this is going to be going on while this school is being used. What sort of disruption would there be to the ends of those buildings as you connect in?
Good question. So we will have to, there currently are exits here and here. We will have to block those exits temporarily. We'll put up some sort of construction partition there so that nobody can come and go. We have enough exits in the building otherwise to meet the building code, so we're not concerned about that. That was an issue we talked with the fire marshal about. So we can still provide safe exiting from those buildings. But there will essentially be a hard wall between this and the construction. We'll also have to look at some construction fencing, because obviously the contractor will want to get back to this area. We've had some discussions with John and Roger about this building. This was the one that was really problematic because it only has 2 exits, and we were going to block one of those. So we're still currently talking about the feasibility of maybe bringing in modulars for those 6 classrooms temporarily, so that we don't have to try to occupy this building, because that one is going to be the most difficult. So I don't know if that's something that we're still exploring or.
As the board's aware, with the opening of Area 1 Elementary School, or the new school on Camp East Road, pardon me, habits are hard to break.
That's okay, John.
That we'll have some modular units available. And so we can relocate 6 modular units from Farm Life and over to this school site to move those classroom structures into, so that building is taken out of play. Very difficult for students to get to that building when one side of it is completely blocked off. They'd almost have to navigate around the campus to get to it. And so we're evaluating the aspect of relocating 6 modular classroom units up there to accommodate them. And again, that'd be just for the duration of construction, at which point when it's done, they can move straight back into their classrooms.
So that makes the separation a whole lot cleaner. We can pretty much have a demarcation line down through here. The contractor will have this side of campus because he's going to need some area for access and staging and laydown and things like that. So, you know, we will have a road that will become a fire access road that he can use to get to this whole side of the campus. So between the construction barriers and the chain link fencing, we can pretty much keep the student population and the contractor population completely separate.
What is your estimate for the total timeline for construction? How many months?
So we will need 2 summers and a whole school year. So what we would like to do, and we've talked to staff about this, we would like to get into this locker room area as soon as possible, maybe even before the end of the school year. We don't know yet. Some of that's going to depend on their sports schedules and things like that, but we'd like to get in there early and get that part done first. That can't be done over a summer, so it's going to drag into part of a school year, and they're going to be inconvenienced for that period of time. They understand that, and they're okay with that. But we want to really start construction the day school is out next year, and then have, you know, an entire year and another summer to complete it.
Any other questions?
So the cafeteria is in the middle of that L.
Yeah, this plan does not show all of the existing buildings.
I was going to ask how many separate buildings will we have on campus?
You'll have right now just the 2 other islands. If you were to imagine here, you have the media center building kind of in the middle right here. That's isolated. And then you have your existing science rooms and cafeteria and some of your CTE programs right there. So that building and that building are the only 2 isolated buildings anymore. What their solution to this that they take advantage of, you remember earlier the slide that showed from the master plan, it coming out here and wrapping this way, making contact with this building over here and that one, and that's it. They was only going to connect 2 buildings originally in the master plan. In this step, they have connected 4 buildings. And they are making this next project, which would be the relocation and administration area over here into this new building connector, the last step needed for that campus. So through this solution, it is going to serve better long-term.
Right.
And eliminating a step in there.
Good thinking.
And at this time, as is our protocol, I'd like to invite the board to split into 2 groups if there's additional dialogue you want to have. with the design team, and you can look more focused. You're looking afar at these plans.
Please.
I'd like to invite you the opportunity to come look closer at them, and ask for you to divide into groups, 2 groups of 3, to look at the plan. There'll be someone over there to talk to you about that, and to look at the site and discuss that here, and then we'll call out for you guys to switch sides. That be acceptable? Thank you. you heard Todd Berg discuss, they want to start the construction as soon as possible in the locker rooms. Purpose of that is get in early as can, renovate them so they have a chance of having use of them in the fall, winter sports events for 2019. And then, as he said, when they need to work through the school year on this edition, and that carries you over into 2020. So through that summer of 2020 is when they're going to be getting towards the tail end of finishes and everything on the project. So you're looking at approximately the fourth quarter, about the winter, to be completely done in 2020 with the project. Exciting year.
Very exciting.
Exciting year. You got a lot going on in 2020.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, we are ready to go into closed session.
Madam
Is there a
Chair,
motion?
I move the board enter closed session to discuss confidential personnel matters and to consult with the board attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A, 1, A3, A5, and A6, including a discussion of Chambers versus Moore County Schools, 18-CV-134, Middle District, North Carolina.
There's a motion on the table.
Second.
Are we going to do that before the break?
Yes.
Dinner break?
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carried. We are going into closed session. We'll be back at 6:30. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you at 6:30.
Thank you.
I call the Moore County Board of Education business meeting back to order. At this time, is there a motion to approve the rest of the agenda?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to welcome everybody to our September meeting. To my left is not Dr. Grimacy.
This is October, though.
Oh,
It is
it is October. Our October board meeting, we have with us Tim Locklear, who is sitting in for Dr. Grimacy today, who is unexpectedly unable to be here today. The first item on the agenda, we have Kevin and Calvin Utley, who are from Aberdeen Primary School, who are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
Thank you. Don't go too far, though. Hold on. Phineas Cruz from Aberdeen Primary School
No.
will lead us, from Aberdeen Primary School, will lead us in the inspiration.
One time, there's a little boy walking in, one time there's an old man walking on the beach. He saw a little boy throwing starfish back into the ocean. The old man asked him what was he doing, and the little boy replied, "I'm throwing these starfish back into the ocean, or else they're gonna die." The old man giggled and he said, "There's only one of you and thousands of starfish. What difference can you make?" The little boy picked up one more starfish and gently threw it back into the ocean and said, "Made a difference to that one."
Thank
I
you.
love that he memorized that. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you the mom? Why don't you join?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, well, thank you.
Right over here. And his mom or dad here? Right over there? All right, we'll get you in here too. I love this circus. Thank you very much.
Where are you guys going?
Oh, there's more.
Thank you, sir. There's another one over there.
I'm lonely over here. You gotta give me a starfish. Thank you, sir. Good job. Thank you, Mom.
Another round of applause for these.
Okay. Would everyone please join me for a moment of silence? Thank you. Would Mito Mula please join Chair Wallen Miller and Vice Chair Carter at the front? This month's Engage, Inspire, and Succeed certified staff honoree is Mito Mula of Cranes Creek Middle. She is a very dedicated teacher at Cranes Creek. This past summer, she taught both 7th grade, 8th grade math, attended her summer curriculum workshops, collaborated as a district math specialist, and she's found in her spare time to advise the junior student-to-student program, welcoming new students to the school and planning events. She also leads the United Way efforts at the school, and we are very lucky to have her as part of the Falcon family. Congratulations, Ms. Mueller. Principal Jones, family member.
I'm a hugger.
Thank you, thank you.
That was my fault.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Very much.
Laura Freedy. Come up, please. Ms. Freedy is this month's support staff honoree. She has been an important member of the West Pine Elementary family for 8 years, a teacher assistant who works in both 1st grade and kindergarten. Ms. Freedy is a caring individual who makes all of the students she works with feel very special and loved. Not only does she work as a TA, she works in the after-school program, helping students with homework, and attend school full-time at St. Andrews. Now, how do you do that? Okay. She's pursuing a degree in teaching. She enjoys working with the children, has a passion for education, obviously. Ms. Freedy is a very special member of the West Pine Elementary family. Congratulations, Principal Tintle, family members.
Don't tell her I'm old.
Yeah.
Great job.
Thanks, Lord. Congratulations.
Janelle McDonald, please join Chair Wallen Miller and Vice Chair Carter. Janelle McDonald has been a volunteer at Cameron Elementary for 16 years. She has a passion for helping, supporting teachers as they have a positive impact on the lives of their children. You'll see her laminating, copying, organizing material, and this year is a special one for Ms. McDonald as her grandchild begins his journey at the school. Would you like to tell us about your grandchild? I knew that was what was going to. We greatly are appreciative of Ms. McDonald's work, and she exemplifies what it means to be #CamScottsProud. Congratulations, Ms. McDonald, Principal Breyer, family members. Dynasty Collins. Big smile. Dynasty Collins of the community, oh, excuse me, Mr. Okay. Dynasty Collins of the Community Learning Center at Pinckney is this month's student honoree. Dynasty is currently in the 11th grade with an overall A grade point average, a leader among her classmates and loved by teachers, support staff, and principal. As you can see, while she's at school, Dynasty always has a smile. She's eager to complete all of her work and is kind to her classmates. Played basketball at Union Pines before attending Pinckney and still plays for the AAU summer team. She's a volunteer on Mother's Day care and loves working with little ones. When we asked her what she would like us to share with the Board of Education this evening, she said she wanted others to know why she attends CLC Pinckney. She shared that she allowed negative things in her life to impact her in a way that caused her to act out of character. She made one choice that changed the direction of her school journey. She wants others to know that one mistake does not define you as a person. She shared that she believes that being at Pinckney has given her the chance to work with teachers who are always caring, always nice, and always there for her. She wanted to be sure that others knew how grateful she is to have the teachers in her life. Dynasty has set a goal to graduate, move to Arizona with her family where she will attend college. For all these reasons, she is our Student of the Month recognized. I would ask friends and principal to stand, but everybody's already standing, so you're good.
Yes, we will stand for daytime. Nice job.
Oh, dear.
Might have to get it. Okay, do you want to do that then, or?
As part of his overall comments, he was covering that, yes.
That's not until here.
That's correct.
So what do you want to do? We'll wait till it's time. Okay. We're going to move into the program highlight. Mr. Locklear.
Thank you, ma'am. We're pleased to have Steve Johnson and Leanne to be with us today to share about our grants that we received of the district. They're going to be highlighting those digital teaching and learning grants. We're pleased to have them highlight that work, and we're excited as a district that received over $400,000 last June. So they're going to be sharing about that work moving forward, so we're excited to have them today. Steve, Leanne?
Moore County School Board, Tim Locklear, Moore County Community, thank you for having us. We're pleased to tell you more about these grants that were just awarded in June to give you an idea of what they are and kind of where we're going with these grants, and then answer any questions you might have about these grants. Like Mr. Locklear said, the total award amount for these grants, again, awarded in June, 2 grants. The Innovation Academy and Implementation Grant was over $441,000 awarded last June from the state of North Carolina. It can be a little bit confusing as far as the grants are concerned because there are 2. And so when I go through this, I want to make sure that you understand that we've got 2 separate grants going at the same time. Why did this happen? So the reason this happened is we have been leading North Carolina with digital learning for the last 4 or 5 years. So the awarding of the grants was really a result of 5 years of hard work in the county. And as a result of that past 5 years of work, last spring we were awarded an additional grant from the state of North Carolina to put on a digital learning showcase in the county, which occurred on May 4th. That coincided with our elementary robotics showcase, and I know several of you were there to see that. This was a highly successful showcase grant where a lot of members of DPI came to visit and to see the good work that our students were doing. And at this time, we had over 200 educators to come to this event from all over the state of North Carolina, with over 32 counties from North Carolina represented with teachers and educators from around the state. In addition to that, we had several university partners. One thing that we found out through this process is that teaching faculty of these education departments were hungry to see what was happening in schools and some of the innovative things that were happening. And so we partnered with St. Andrews, NC State, Fayetteville State, UNC Charlotte, and Meredith College to send representatives to come and see. I'm sorry, UNC Pembroke, not UNC Charlotte. Thank you, Dr. Brown. That also included over 40 North County school students, again, 160 plus folks from outside. And what we found is that our work in K-5 has really been a catalyst for change in the district. So as we get these students involved with more digital learning and hands-on learning and engaged digital thinking, they have been hungry and coming forward through the middle school and high school wanting to do more of this as they progress. And so that's been a real impetus for our change. So the two grants I want to make sure that you're aware of are the Innovation Academy, which is a 3-year grant. We are one of 4 in the state to be awarded that grant, so it was a highly selective process. And that one focuses on K-5. And so that's a 3-year grant with just under $100,000 a year. And that goes to pay for 2 main facets that Leanne is going to tell you about here in a moment. Our elementary schools hosting small groups to visit to see the good work that's happening in our schools by teachers and educators across the state. And also a yearly showcase and conference that teachers can come to and learn about how to do this and take it back to their own districts. In grades 6 through 12 is our implementation grant, and we are working on a better name for that. We almost have it. But that implementation grant, we were one of 19 in the state, and we were the only LEA in the state to be awarded 2 digital teaching and learning grants. So that's another big part of this. And that one is focused on 6-12, and I'll give you some more information about that after Leanne tells you about the Innovation Academy.
Okay, so the first part of the Innovation Academy grant is a small group hosting, and I'm excited about this because what this is going to do is going to give Moore County the opportunity to showcase across the state the great things that we're doing in the classrooms. And so with this grant, visiting leadership teams from district and school leadership teams, plus university faculty will come to our elementary schools, and they're going to have the opportunity to observe and reflect on a couple of classrooms, and if it's a STEM school, then they'll also get to see the STEM lab in action. But they're going to look at teachers that are infusing the design thinking, the digital learning, the 4 C's in their classrooms, and they're going to get an opportunity to reflect on what they saw and hopefully go back to their district and implement it within their district. And so part of this grant also is the follow-up process that we're going to provide to these districts and these leadership teams when they return home to help them implement the same thing within their district that we're doing here in Moore County Schools. The second part to this is the yearly conference, and this coincides with our elementary robotics competition, which is happening on May the 3rd this year. And with this, again, we will have the educators from across the state that's going to get to come and see our students in action as they're doing the robotics competition, but they're also going to get to engage in some sessions, some professional development sessions, to teach them how to do what we have been doing in our K-5 classrooms for the past few years. In this year, it will be a 1-day event, and in the next 2 years following that, it will be a 2-day conference.
Yeah, and the Innovation Academy, another part that I want to make sure you know is the reason Leanne Holmes is here with me is because she, as part of the grant, has been hired as a STEM grant coordinator. And so it's given us another opportunity to really maximize our funds, our impact, and we are very grateful to have Leanne as a part of this process. The 6-12 implementation grant, again, targeted to grades 6 through 12, and what the focus of this grant is on increasing best digital learning practices in our secondary schools. And so the way we've focused on doing that is creating 2 cohorts of master teachers within our schools. And so the first cohort is this year. It's a 2-year grant. So the first year cohort starts this year. And each cohort member that applies and is accepted to be a member of the cohort gets $1,200 to spend in their classroom and a full year long of professional development on best practices in digital teaching and learning. And the end product is in the summer during our summer curriculum workshop. I'm very excited about this. They are going to be creating mini projects that target academically weak areas. So they'll be diving into our standards and our achievement data to figure out where are the parts in 612 that we're really traditionally having problems with, and how can we get some really engaging work going in those classrooms. Those teachers will then turn around to become teacher leaders throughout the district. We're spreading the teachers across the 612 schools, so we have representation across all schools. They will turn around and have professional development and lead professional development for us, and also implement their projects with diff support in their schools. I'm really excited about this, and this is the week that we are accepting applications.
Yes.
And we've had a lot of great applications, and I also want to put the word out, if you know any teachers that are 612 and they are interested in this, we're looking for great teachers. They don't have to be great with technology. We just want good teachers that are willing to take risks. Again, the first cohort kicks off on November the 1st this year, and then applications for cohort number 2 will open up in the spring, so we'll have a second cohort of teacher leaders to develop in the same pattern next year. And again, developing that teacher leadership and having intentional diff support to support our standards in that 612 schools. At this point, I would like to turn it over to see if there's any questions. I also want to say thank you for your support. One thing I failed to mention at the beginning is one of the things that when DPI came back to us and told us they accepted this grant, both of these grants, is because of the level of support they witnessed when they came out to see, not only from the community, but the school board, from the superintendent, senior staff. That really played a large role in them accepting our grant application. So thank you.
Great. Any questions or comments?
It's a wonderful addition to our classrooms. And I must say, I like the fact that your PowerPoint was not on the old standard children at the bottom half moon.
Oh.
Yeah, it caught my eye.
I appreciate that comment.
It caught my eye there, and I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't we expect something new and different? It's our digital initiative people.
Exactly.
So
We're gonna have it
obviously,
dance around, but,
obviously, you're leading the way here, making a difference. So
we'll try to continue making a difference in that area.
How are you getting the information out to the 612 cohort that you have these openings available?
Actually, we, through the grant, we were able to purchase some software where that we were able to send some mass emails out to the 612 teachers. And then also through our divs and the principals, we've contacted them to give us names, and our instructional leaders.
Sounds like a great opportunity. I hope they take you up on it.
Yeah, they will.
in the cohort, are you trying to spread it out over all curriculum areas, like 2 from math and 2 from science and 2 from history, whatever, or you just?
Great question. Yeah, we want to hit the core content as our main focus, but we don't want to eliminate any other content areas. So all certified staff are available to apply. If we get an art teacher that can be a leader for art teachers in the district, we want to take them as well. We are focused on the core content, but it's not going to be eliminating of anyone that applies.
Great.
I think this should be called the Inspiration Grant.
Well, it's funny you say that. We've got some names, and we'll come back to you, and inspiration might be in there.
And I'd like to say, Steve, for you and your people, this year we've got to get some legislators down here. I know some that are extremely interested in this, and they're the ones that decide what's going to be done. So I will make sure we get some of them down here some way this year to see it.
Great. We'd love to see them.
Or next year, it is.
Anything else? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Our consent agenda.
Madam
there a
Chair,
motion?
move the consent agenda be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Locklear, the superintendent's report.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm struggling not saying Dr. Grimacy. Doing a good job.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Tonight's superintendent report I'm sharing on behalf of Dr. Grimacy, as we've already noted, he can't be here tonight. But the report tonight highlights the valuable contributions made by our employees whose work prior to, during, and following Hurricane Florence mitigated the storm damage and enabled our students to have relatively a speedy return to school. Our students' safety, good health, and welfare represent the essential first steps toward their academic achievement. They must have safe, hygienic, and functional classroom environments in which to learn, safe modes of transportation to and from school, and safe and nutritious food to eat. Most of the work to satisfy such student needs is done by Moore County School employees who are generally they work behind the scenes. In many ways, their work may seem routine until an event, like a devastating hurricane, that shines a spotlight on their contributions. Our formal preparations for the storm were triggered by Moore County's declaration on Tuesday, September 11th, that a state of emergency would go into effect as of 5 p.m. Wednesday, September 12th. Moore County's role in response to that state of emergency was to ensure that all students and employees were released and all school buses were off the road by 5 p.m. on Wednesday and throughout the day on Thursday. Reducing school-related traffic enabled county service vehicles, first responders, and local utility providers greater freedom to engage in their preparations in advance of the storm. As you will see, the early release also enabled many Moore County Schools employees to engage in their own preparations in advance of the storm. These critical steps taken by many of our employees contributed greatly to the mitigation of damage and speedy return of our students to school after the storm. I'd like to start by highlighting the work of our transportation department. As I do, I'd like to ask our Director of Transportation, Kevin Griffin, if he'll join me, stand with me, and to represent all members of his team, his department, who served so admirably in response to Hurricane Florence. Kevin? Ahead of the storm, school buses were parked away from trees and low-lying areas. As a result, no buses were flooded or damaged by the storm. Transportation supervisors and specialists remained in contact with the County Emergency Operations Center to stay up to date on various road closures and flooded areas so that routes could be revised and then communicated to school bus drivers and school principals. This was a moving target, as Kevin will attest to, even several days after the storm, as rivers and creeks crested and then receded. Our technicians worked tirelessly to ensure buses were operational, and state-required inspections were conducted before schools opened again. In all, 15 routes were impacted and had to be rerouted for at least several days following the storm. Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate your team's work.
Have Kevin come around and shake hands.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yes. Please be sure and thank all your team.
Now I'd like to ask our Director of Maintenance, Bradley Garner, to stand with me as a representative of everyone in his department and on his team. Bradley, come on up. In preparation for the storm, the maintenance department inspected roofs at all of our buildings, cleared roof drains, gutters, and storm drains, and made sure canopies were secure. They placed sandbags at 13 schools that were most vulnerable to flooding. At the height of the storm on Saturday and Sunday, maintenance staff members continued to inspect schools and other facilities to assess the conditions. Sadly, as one of our maintenance staff members reported to Dr. Grimacy, one of their responsibilities was to replace numerous sandbags that had been stolen during the storm. On Monday, September 17th, maintenance teams were deployed to all schools to document all damages. There were numerous roof, window, door, and wall leaks. Floors were replaced in JRTC building at Union Pines High School and in the daycare building at Bass Lakeview Elementary. 4 of our carpenters spent 4.5 days replacing damaged roof shingles at 6 of our schools. Fallen trees were removed at 4 schools, and damaged ceiling tires were replaced throughout the district, and floors were cleared of water and debris. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
I noticed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bradley.
Thank you.
Please thank you and your team for
I
us.
will. Thanks.
Next, I'd like to ask our Director of Technology, Kent Eklund, to stand with me to represent everyone in his team and his department. Thanks, Kent. The Technology Department took several preventative measures ahead of the storm. It shut down all of the district's servers and left a minimal set of core communications equipment running. During Hurricane Matthew in 2016, the district's data center suffered damage from a significant leak. so extra precautions were taken in advance of Florence to prevent damage in the event of more leaking. Power to the data center was lost on the Sunday during the storm, so technology staff members continued to communicate with maintenance and operations staff who were working directly with Duke Energy to restore the power by Monday afternoon. Full data center operations were restored by late evening, allowing the September payroll to be processed on Tuesday on time, which is significant. Once the data center was up and running, technology staff members fanned out district-wide to inspect network access at all of our schools. Apart from damaged fiber at one school building, all network access was restored and ready for our students when they return on September 21st. Thank you, Kent. Thank you. Appreciate your team's work.
Thanks, sir.
You and that team.
I hope you noted that I reported that payroll was processed on Tuesday, September 18th. So let me pause and thank Mike Bundy and his team for all their hard work on behalf of all our employees. Finally, I'd like to highlight the work of our Child Nutrition Department. To that end, I would ask Jan Loveley, our Director of Child Nutrition Services, to stand with me as a representative of her team. All of our school-based child nutrition managers performed detailed food inventories ahead of the storm to anticipate what our losses might be and what would be available to share between schools should the need arise. 5 schools lost all refrigerated and frozen foods, and 12 schools lost all items in coolers and ice cream freezers. Some food also was lost at the Child Nutrition Warehouse due to power loss, but the majority of our USDA commodities were saved. 25 cafeteria staff members came out to help move food between 8 locations to ensure sufficient food would be available when our students came back to school. They even put Dr. Grimacy to work.
Great.
Yeah, I'm sure. Countywide, child nutrition services suffered more than $15,000 in losses of refrigerated and frozen food, less than what we might have lost if it had not been for all the hard work prior to the storm. Moreover, vendors who deliver food also were impacted by the many washed-out roads across the state. Despite these significant challenges, our Child Nutrition Department was prepared to provide our students with nutritious meals when they returned to school on September 21st. Thank you, Jeff.
Can I add
Thank
something
you.
to that as well?
Absolutely.
They had the updated version of the menu right on it. So I love that because I knew exactly what my daughter can eat for lunch. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yep. Great team.
Yeah.
And they're working overtime with the free meals that the USDA is providing through their disaster technical assistance grants, or their
Segueing
Oh.
to another comment right there. Yeah. Nice segue there, Madam Chair. The storm, our need to prepare for it, and our need to recover from it caused a total loss of 37 instructional hours. Rather than wait for the General Assembly to pass legislation to allow for calendar flexibility, we felt as a district it was vitally important that we restore our students' daily routines and resume their learning as soon as possible. Therefore, with your blessing, we converted September 28th and October 26th from early release days to full instructional days. A lot of our teachers gave us great positive feedback on this decision, and they're very thankful they could make up classroom time with their students. Last week, the General Assembly did pass, and Governor Cooper signed, legislation that enabled Moore County to maintain all of the 36 instructional hours that we had banked for use in response to our more predictable annual weather-related school closings. The legislation also addressed the compensation of employees during the hurricane-related school closures, particularly hourly employees who missed many hours of work during the storm. Moore County schools will qualify for that assistance since it is included among the counties in the North Carolina Disaster Declaration by FEMA. Finally, Moore County also was included among the counties, as Madam Chair noted, identified by the U.S. Department of Agriculture that qualify for federal disaster release and assistance due to Hurricane Florence. This designation is allowing all Moore County students to qualify for 1 free breakfast and 1 free lunch each school day throughout the month of October, and we want to tip our hat to our child nutrition staff for all the hard work they're doing for that. Madam Chair, members of the school board, allow me to conclude by asking you to join me and Dr. Grimsey in expressing our appreciation for all of our transportation, maintenance, technology, child nutrition, and other employees who served so admirably before, during, and after the hurricane. Thank you. And on behalf of Dr. Grimsey, we both remain at your service.
Thank you. I think there's some blushing back there, too. We are grateful for your time and for your expertise and what you do for our children day in and day out and during disasters, so thank you. Do we have any public address?
There is no public address this evening.
Okay, we're going into board comments. I'm looking at you, Mr. Cunningham. You may begin.
This evening, or before this evening's program, we had a work session where the board viewed the proposed revisions, renovations of Northmore High School to add an auxiliary gym, wrestling room, classrooms, and to start circling the wagons and tying together the separate buildings. And I was very pleased and impressed to see the thought that went into that, and it won't be long before we're building our next facility. It's very exciting.
I just want to thank all the people that worked on everything that was done to get ready for Hurricane Florence and after Hurricane Florence. I heard from several teachers that it was a blessing when children were able to come and get hot food, because a lot of them had been several days without any hot food. So I thank you, Ms. Lovelady.
My compliments to all our employees for handling what happened with Florence. And like Bruce, after 8 years, we're getting there, Bruce.
Yeah.
And I'll just add, remember the portals are open for comments on the new reassignments for the new elementary school on Camp Easter Road, as well as the portals for naming that new school. And since I don't have to drive Catherine Murphy crazy, I'm going to submit something more elementary, a lot more elementary, and more or less elementary to the list of school names. But by all means, get your suggestions in.
Yeah, I pretty much ditto everything that you guys have said. Catherine did just send out a voicemail. I just got it pinged up on my phone for military surveys. So please check your voicemails and hopefully get all those surveys in, because that military impact aid form helps out a lot for schools.
All right, I have no further comments. I thank you all for a good meeting. Thank you for sitting in for Dr. Grimsey today at the last minute. And is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carry, any opposed? Just checking. Motion carries. We are adjourned.